you can see, we have called together the Sunday Roundtable. Sitting at our roundtable, joining us this morning, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. I just want to be, accurate because we have a roundtable. We're sitting at the roundtable. Congressman Auchincloss was sitting in a chair. Marianne, let me start with you. What jumps out? What's the takeaway?
I mean, I think there were two things. His defense of Biden has gone increasingly more vocal, and he used his military background to do it. Just to go on the record here, while he says he's not interested in running statewide this cycle, I think it's worth waiting and noting to see if that's the case, because all of us have been around long enough to have heard that from people until the day they announce.
He's very specific, too.
But yes, but plenty of people wait and say, I'm not, and then they do.
And then they get in.
And well, he might have been, very careful with the words "this cycle." You know what I mean, Rob?
I agree. Keep an eye on him for trying to trade up to the Senate or something else. But, my impression is this is why it's important to have elected officials who are in their 30s, who are younger and not sort of the ancient crew that controls Washington now. I mean, AI, cyber threats. We need people who are, more current in thinking about the future threats than the leadership in Washington. So good. I think it's good to have people like him from both parties.
Putting those issues on a national stage the way he did with AI.
Exactly. And it's hard to make an impression as a House member to get national news on something. You're one of 435. So he did well with that AI thing, and I think he's raised the profile.
But he also needs to support taking TikTok off now. I mean, that's long overdue.
All right, President Biden's State of the Union performance, it certainly had a big impact. We heard a lot of talk about his political savvy, his age, his ability to lead the Democratic Party, but didn't seem like an issue, certainly not that night. All signs point to a re-election run. Marianne, is he more than just a Trump silver bullet?
Wow. One of the best speeches ever. 73 minutes, an hour and 13 minutes. He gave a speech, set the trap. The Republicans took it on Social Security and Medicare. Then he went after them again. They gave him the contrast he wants for the re-election. So he set up 2024. He basically, after the speech, stayed there for another hour plus, like the last guy at the bar when they turned the lights on, trying to get everybody out. And it worked. I mean, so I think he put aside questions about his age, set up the 2024 re-election. One last point. He then goes to Florida, where there are more retirees than there are people. They all want Social Security, Medicare. Goes after DeSantis, who might run against him, and goes after Rick Scott, who's up in 2024. Smart.
What do you think?
I think that's a rosier than realistic outlook. I mean, I think he swept the D.C. Insider positive reviews, and I do think Republicans look bad heckling. I mean, they definitely look very bad. But content-wise, Bernie Sanders could have given this speech. And I think for the average viewer at home, despite, I think, acquitting himself pretty well, Biden looked old. And that's the biggest problem going into this presidential election for Democrats, that Biden looks old. And will they be with somebody who's that old?
He parried so well, though, with all the Republicans screaming at him. He came into his own that night.
Oh, he was energized.
Yeah.
But no, he stood up to it,
Yeah.
at least from that performance on that night. To that very point, this next guy we're going to talk about is under 50, right? He's 47, 48 years old. Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire. More than testing the waters for a 2024 presidential run, he's formed a national political fundraising group, which is called Live Free or Die. No points for subtlety, right? Is he the next generation Republican that we keep hearing about, Rob?
I mean, I'm not sure that he's a viable long-term candidate for president, who can win on the national stage. I think he's a piece in the chess match which Republicans are engaged in to get Trump out, to have anybody but Trump win the primaries. I think Sununu's part of that. I'm not saying it's all coordinated, but he's going to be a chip in that poker game. Can Governor Sununu win the primary in his own state, a presidential primary in his own state?
No, and he won't. I mean, he's not going to be the nominee. And by his own admission, he says, if I don't win the New Hampshire primary, I can't be president. That's right. He's doing the cable rounds this week, and he talks about transparency. Yet he sat in this very chair and said, I won't sign the most, draconian abortion law in New Hampshire. But then he never said, and if it sits on my desk for 10 days without my signature, it becomes law. He called Trump crazy, right? But he says, if he's the nominee, I'll support him. So there's no way on this earth Chris Sununu is the nominee or president.
But what he could do, right, is he could be in the race, raise his profile, and then be somebody who delivers New Hampshire or another state through a late endorsement, to somebody who could get over the top against Trump or somebody else. So he's setting himself up to be a
with
player.
eyes toward
A player.
perhaps being a member of a team if there's a Republican.
Who knows? Or
Okay.
just doing
Got
the
it.
right thing
Got it.
by stopping Trump.
Got it.
Fair amount of non-Trump alternatives out there. So former Massachusetts governor, now Utah Senator Mitt Romney, he ripped into New York Congressman George Santos at the State of the Union. He told the factually challenged Santos, "You don't belong here on the floor of the House." Santos took offense. Here's a listen.
He shouldn't be in Congress, and they're going to go through the process and hopefully get him out.
It's not the first time in history that I've been told to shut up and go to the back of the room, especially by people who come from a privileged background.
He also went on to say that he's not very Mormon.
Yeah. Okay. So are you surprised that Mitt Romney was the only one willing to speak up? Let's start with you, Marianne.
Mitt Romney unplugged. The Massachusetts Mitt Romney, long gone, speaking his mind.
A side we haven't seen.
But he's lost 2 presidential campaigns. He's the senator from Utah. They're not going to vote him out. And he's saying what all of us are thinking. And I thought his behavior was sort of Mormonish.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Santos, but I find it hard to believe that this wasn't a bit of a publicity stunt for Mitt Romney because, let's face it, serving in the Senate with him is Dick Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, who lied about serving in Vietnam, got elected to the Senate. Nobody's calling on him to resign, and Mitt Romney isn't saying anything about him. So George Santos is being held to a high standard by Mitt Romney, and Mitt Romney got the headlines he wanted out of saying
We're
that.
not really clear about Santos's background either, so he's criticizing Mitt Romney's.
Right. I'm not saying lying is a good thing if you're running for anything, but there's Blumenthal. And then there's George Santos, who's broken all the
Hall
rules,
of Fame
every law.
life,
And
yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
what's his real name?
there's a lot of other people in Congress who have inflated their resumes to get elected. I would feel better about Mitt Romney if he called them out as well.
There's inflating your resume and being a serial sick liar.
We're going to
No,
continue.
he
this
should
right through the
resign.
commercial break, so we'll
He
be right
should
back.
resign. I agree with you.